be live streaming.
We are live. We're live.
Oh, I just failed that test.
Hello, my name is Trish Ajel Roberts, and welcome to the Mind Blowing Happiness Podcast. Today we're talking to yoga instructor and shamanic healer, Prima Yawa. Hi, Prima. How are you today?
I am excellent. Thank you so much for having me, Trish.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. So, I met Prima about 2 years ago. I am in Winter Haven, Florida right now, and we were teaching yoga together
Mm.
at one of the studios out here. So, I usually don't talk that much about Florida, but this today we can put Florida on the map. Winter Haven,
Yes.
Florida on the map. And
I
I
would say Winter Haven is one of the top three places being moved to, relocation happening. So we're growing, we're booming.
Okay. Yeah, it's a really lovely town. And I don't remember at what point you told me that you were studying shamanism. And I keep thinking, am I saying it right? But I think I'm close enough. So before we get to our topic, can you, first of all, correct me if I'm pronouncing it wrong, and then also explain to our audience what shamanism is?
Shamanism is a ancestral practice. The lineage that I study comes out of Peru. And it is typically, in some cultures, they call it medicine woman, medicine man, but it is typically the shaman is the healer of the tribe. Um, and when we talk healing, we don't mean you're going to somebody and they're giving you the medicine, but a healer helps you find what you already have in you, just guide the way. So that's pretty much what shamanism is. It's guiding, opening doors into other planes, into energetic places, into your body, to help you access your higher self.
I love that. I really did not know the answer to that. So you studied, I guess, a Peruvian lineage. Are there lineages for shamanism in other cultures as well?
Yeah, so you can find it in the Mexican tradition. You can find it in Native American cultures. It is an old practice, like I said, and if you look at it, it can be termed different
Depending where you
titles
are.
in different parts of the world and different cultures, but it all boils down to energy and being able to access it.
And I would imagine that there's probably African
Yes,
lineages as well, right?
100%.
hmm Um, so how did you find your way there, Prima? How'd you find your way to shamanism? What happened to you? Tell us about it.
What I can now call a beautiful night of the soul. I didn't feel that it was so beautiful at the time. A 5D answer would be that I was born into it, but we are in a 3D world, and I had a dark night of the soul. I got cracked wide open. Um, and I had a very good friend who I had already been practicing yoga with on and off, just highly encouraged me to find a yoga mat in a yoga studio. And as she was encouraging me, I saw Inside Out had a special, and so I showed up on the mat. 3 weeks, unlimited, and I showed up almost every day. And by the end of those 3 weeks, my mind was quiet for the first time.
The
I
power of
didn't know
yoga.
it was possible, didn't even know it was possible. So along that journey, I encountered my teacher, Allie. She came to Inside Out as a guest teacher, and she was like, I promise you, what we're going to do tonight might not feel like yoga, but it is yoga. Um, so we did it, the practice, and I literally got up out of Savasana and said I did not know yoga could get better.
Mm.
And I made a decision to give myself a private session with her for my birthday. And I woke up that morning. At that time, I was very committed to my meditation. And I got up, meditated, immediately started crying, couldn't stop crying, cried all the way to her house and was like, I am not going to go in this lady's house crying because I don't let people see me cry. And I got myself together, got in there, sat down in the chair across from her and just bawled, just like a puddle of water. Long story short, it wasn't yoga that I had booked. It was a shamanic session. And she just looked at me and she said, I need you to know your grandma brought you here.
Mhm.
And I was no good after that. I just,
Mhm.
I floated
You
through
said your
that,
grandma brought you here.
brought me there to her. And
Mhm.
in our session, as she had me on the table, I could see the lineage of women in my family surrounding that table and just doing working their magic. And then from that day on, I was hungry. I knew there was
Mhm.
better. I hadn't known there was better. And then I knew there was better. So in 2018, I signed up for what at the time was called Jaguar Path, which was a shamanism training. And it was the best decision I made for my life.
That's a beautiful story. I love that when you were telling it, you talked about a dark night of the soul. And so many times we don't want to have dark nights of the soul. Like we don't want to have these negative experiences that sometimes bring us to our knees,
Yes.
but that's where the magic happens. I know in my life, that's how it was. It's like you get to a place where it's like something cracks open because what was
Yes.
there isn't working.
Hmm.
Um, there's a Rumi quote I'm gonna probably mess up, but I think what it is, he says, the wound is where the light comes in,
Yes. Yes.
which is
Yes.
just another nice way to describe. Because when everything's working for you, you're really not looking sometimes. You're
No,
not
no.
growing.
And there are things coming into our field constantly, messages, guidance, direction. Like it's happening all the time. And if we are not present and in awareness, then we would miss it. And if everything's going great, sometimes our head is just up in the cloud, and you can't be in the cloud all the time. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
there is a treatment or a session that you can do in shamanism, that kind of the same expression, cracking the nut, but it comes along with extreme caution and it's only used in extreme cases. So when we talk
Mm-hmm.
about that dark night of the soul, it's like that typically happens in extreme cases when we haven't been listening, when we haven't been paying attention, and I wasn't doing either. I was it's so deep in survival, that you know, I wasn't doing either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So today's topic is how to access your spirit guides.
Yes.
And we're gonna, well, I don't know if I'm going to, I'm still on the fence, but I definitely asked Prima to pull some cards for us today to give the listeners and the viewers a reading. And I've never done this on my podcast before, so I'm excited about that. I do follow Gabby Bernstein and I
Yes.
listen to her podcast, and I've heard
Love
her
her.
do that. Yes, yes. So I thought that that would be a fun thing to do. So I guess my first question as we get into this topic is how would you like define spirit guides? What does that mean to you?
So for me, spirit guides are primarily your ancestors, someone that you've known that has moved on. And sometimes it's a direct lineage, and at other times it's not, because it depends on who is the open channel, that you would have access and that can have access to you. In my case, one of my primary spirit guides is my grandmother. And that is something that's probably more normal, more
Mm-hmm.
usual than not. Um, but there's a whole spiritual team that comes along with that. So you can also have archangels, um,
Mm-hmm.
you can have ascended masters,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, I have an assortment of them, and at this point I don't even know that I know all of them, and they shift, and sometimes they um come when needed with the message and the energy that is needed. But my grandmother is a ever present constant in
Mm-hmm.
my journey.
Yeah, I have a meditation that I had started doing to connect with my spirit guides. And in one of those sessions, I heard my mother.
Mm.
She passed away, gosh, over a decade ago, right? And one of the things she said to me was to study the archangels. And so I got this book. And that was the first time I kind of understood that term that you just used, ascended masters.
Yes.
because in the book, people like Jesus and Buddha are ascended masters. I know that your background was a Christian background, and I started with a Christian background as well. So I just wanted to share that, um, to let people know that you don't have to give up things that you may believe in, or spirit guides that you're using that you may not call spirit guides, like Jesus, or Buddha. Um, I love the, like when you said team, I love this place where I am in now, where I do feel supported by a team as opposed to um, just one. And I think generally speaking, right, that more than one mind is better than one. More
Yes.
than one friend is better than one. More than one support person is better than one. So I just want to talk a little bit, mm,
Uh, you spoke
about
of my Christian background, and for me, that comes with a whole chapter for my journey. And I felt very disconnected from the concept of Jesus and God and, and all of those figures and things that I had studied and learned growing up through the Bible. Um, Yoga was what helped me take God out of the box.
that.
I came
Hmm.
back to God and my belief, in the higher power, the divine. I feel like you can, choose what your journey looks like and what you choose to call it. But yoga brought me back to God, and it helped me see that every religion or organized religion has the same concept, and it all comes down to love. And then every person that, in my opinion, from my studying, that has been placed as the heads of those particular um, religions or organizations that have passed on were teachers. They each were teachers. They brought words, they brought energy, they were teachers. So when they ascended on, they are ascended masters.
Hmm.
So that was something that opened many doors for me in my mind. My mentor, David Skywalker, took me through a spirit guide meditation, and it blew my mind when Jesus and Mary, Mother Mary, was there. Because I was like, what? Say what now? They here with me? They
Yeah.
here with me. But the way, the power that brought back for me, in me, with me, it's second to none.
Yeah. And one thing I will touch on as well, because I grew up Catholic, and like you said, I didn't feel very connected to it. I was atheist for many years. When I look back, it feels lost to me. I had really no spiritual anchor. But I do want to acknowledge that a lot of people experience trauma from the religion of their birth. Many, of course, in the LGBTQ community, we know that's huge. Sometimes just being a woman in a religion where women are not allowed to lead, what messages those may send. And a lot of shame and guilt, and well, at least that's how the Catholics do it. Shame
That's
and
how Pentecostals do it
guilt.
too.
Oh gosh. So tell me this, like, what are some of you mentioned some already, but do you have other favorite ways to connect with your spirit guides?
Yes. So meditation is a primary source for me. Um,
Mhm.
typically lighting, Palo Santo. Um, I actually have dried mugwort right now, but
You
sage,
got to tell us what those
rosemary.
things mean. So what
Um,
kind of lighting? I finally figured out Palo Santo like 2 weeks ago.
I did that before we got on. So this is
Okay.
Santo. And
So it's a
then
wood that burns.
recently,
It's very fragrant and beautiful and
yeah,
spiritual.
I've
Yes.
tried mugwort. I had a bundle, and it's like I'm using it down to the very, very end.
Oh, that's a
I
plant. It's a leaf.
It's actually mugwort is a plant, and
Okay.
this particular one is dried and was bundled, but it has many uses in the herbal side of practice, magic, herbalism, food. Like it has a lot of things to support you, but it also can induce some psycho um, tripping in some people, so you have to
Oh,
be aware of that too.
Write that down.
So these are just
And you said
mechanisms.
lighting. You said lighting. What kind of
Yeah,
lighting?
so I was trying to find I thought I have a lighter over here, but I don't. Looks like. So I have like more of a torch. So I recommend a torch, but a lighter. You would just take that lighter and you would light any mechanism that you're using. So smoke is really what we're
Oh,
looking
okay.
for. The different things that we light have different properties. Palo Santo is my choice. I do like it because it is known to remove negative energy and bring in positive energy at the same time. With others like sage, you need to make sure, especially you want to have a door or window open and you want to come behind it. So like with incense or Palo Santo, something to kind of restore the balance in the space. So we call that smudging. And that's something I like to do. I like to smudge, say a little prayer, calling and asking for my spirit guides, my archangels, my ascended masters to come and be with me. And I invite any like kind spirits to
Yes.
join because there
Important.
are kind spirits
Hmm.
as on the 3D earth. It is in, the 5Ds at times as well. So smudging is one way I like to do it and just simply calling out. So, some call that prayer. Um,
Hmm.
at the core of what I do in this, to me, it still is all about spirit, connection. As with everything, you find different words and labels and different ways of doing that, but those are what I choose.
Yeah, it's funny because I love my incense. I haven't been burning candles as much as I used to, but I'll burn incense and sage and recently, Palo Santo. But I've always done it because it makes me feel a certain way.
Mhm.
Like I feel this kind of calmness. Um, so I didn't think of it as enhancing my ability to connect with my guides, and probably because I just don't know as much about that part. I was looking at it more like, excuse me, I was looking at it more like, aromatherapy, like it was calming me down. So it's just so fun to learn more
So
about.
you said two keywords, relax and calm. So there you are. You're a whole channel at that point, right? So like if you're calm, think about the state of your mind, think about the state of your body and your being. If you're uptight, your mind's full and all of this, nothing can
Yeah,
get in, right? But if
yeah,
you're
right.
relaxed and now, and we have gotten an opportunity to know each other. I know that you have a practice. So while it is not the have to for the practice, it is an actual door to the practice.
Hmm.
Because you
Yeah,
always want to make sure you clear your space. Because I just spoke about kind versus unkind spirits and entities and things that can be present. So you always want to make sure you clear your space and be clear about what you're calling in and who you're calling in.
and clear your space is
Yes.
best done with
Um,
smoke,
a
right?
smudging. Yep, with smudging. Yes, that is the way that I was taught, and it's the thing that I prefer to do.
Hmm. So I guess we both use meditation to connect. Um, I had for a while, and sometimes I'll still do it when I wake up in the morning. I like to say their names and just express gratitude. Um, Last week I had a card reading where the reader used an ancestral deck, so that was nice. Um, and I'm wondering how you would answer this question. Why is it even important? Why do we need to connect with our spirit guides?
Um,
Why do you think we
what
should?
we just talked about, that dark night of the soul, when I said that there's always things coming in, right? There's messages, there's signs, there's symbols. It's all coming in. So whether you're aware or not, they're there, right? That's the part of the lineage, is a part of being an ancestor. We all can benefit from being supported by
Mhm,
those who have walked this earth and who have ascended. People say they feel the presence of Jesus. Well, that's why it's important. Do you know what that feeling is? Like to be
mhm.
supported by a spirit that is so powerful and held in that way. that can transform a being, and we all come through this life with some form of trauma. And as you begin to work through that or intentionally be present with those things, I can say that having support is like the ultimate experience there. I think not being supported is a part of the trauma. And it's something we can perpetuate on ourselves, on others. It's just a part of our society. So I would say it's so important because at anytime, anywhere, you can call on your spirit guides.
That sounds 100% perfect, because I don't know anyone who doesn't need support. So I guess we already talked a little bit about your journey. Um, I talked about, I guess we both talked about how we like to connect. Why don't we, unless you have something else you want to talk about, why don't we pull some cards?
Okay, okay, okay. Well, another thing with the shamanism and working with your spirit guides, you can also utilize crystals, and I have some selenite here. But primarily with the lineage I went through, we actually collected rocks because using elements from the earth and having them gone through rituals and different things like through our training, they are items that I use now in my private sessions with people when they come for healing. So earth elements, being close to the earth, it can be called grounding, when you're directly having your feet on the earth, but being close to the earth, being in nature can be a way also to connect. So I did want to loop back to that because it's not always about the items we bring into it. It's about showing up, because everything we need, we already have.
Now, the crystal that you talked about, selenite,
Mhm.
is that, what are the properties of it? Like, is it something that you would specifically want to use to connect with spirit or?
So it's a protective crystal. This paired with any black crystal, so jet, obsidian, put by a door or placed together is very protective. So like the obsidian wards off, the selenite will bring in protection and amplify. One of the things I'll do if I'm feeling off or if I just need to clear my energy or I'm getting ready to do some work or just did some work, take this and just start going over my body, clearing my energetic field, as we all have an energetic field, so just using this is a good one. It shouldn't be wet. So I know sometimes we put these out, put our crystals out to charge in the moon, but this is not a crystal that likes to get wet. It'll splinter and do all that crazy
Mm,
stuff.
mhm.
So, oh,
Okay, so I'm glad you
yeah.
told us a little bit about selenite.
Yeah.
Um, so what are we gonna do with these cards?
So we talked a little bit before we got started. I have a preference for Oracle decks. I'm going to try and get that right. Yeah, for Oracle decks. So this is a goddess deck, and this is a spirit animal deck, and that's upside down.
Yeah,
Uh,
and can you just tell us the difference between oracle decks and other decks?
Yep. So tarot is the traditional deck that people use. It has a set amount of cards. So no matter what the art is on it, has certain representations of your major arcana, your minor arcana. Oracle can be any number of deck, of cards, and it will vary based on the author. So if I did a deck, my deck would look different than your deck. As in, oh, did I do something?
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Don't do anything.
Um, so this one is that goddess deck. So it represents beautiful, beautiful goddesses from all lineages. Uh,
Mhm.
One of the reasons that I got this was I got a birth chart reading from a fellow shaman. She's amazing. And she used this deck, and I hadn't seen a deck that represented so many different beautiful backgrounds of goddesses that I had to have that. And I've been using that for
I wanted
several years.
I wanted to just jump in with the goddesses thing. So I had gone to my first yoga retreat, I think maybe around 2016, and we did these meditations um, around goddess. It was the first time that I even thought about the idea of goddesses outside of like Isis and stuff when I was a kid and it was on TV. And I that just the speaking of this idea of goddesses moved me so much that I walked away from that thinking, I am a goddess. And I never had that internalized before. So it's just interesting because how you can have conversations or just experiences, and they can be in a moment that can totally change not just the way that you maybe look at the world, but the way that you show up and the way that you feel about yourself. Like I will never forget that experience because I was like, you know what? Wait a minute. I
Yes,
am a
goddess.
whole goddess.
Yeah.
Yes. And you know, we all have that opportunity to feel that way about ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. And that was exactly what I was thinking when as I heard you go in there. I'm like, but it will change the way you show up in the world. And that is probably one of the things that I love the most about this journey. I'm grateful to be given the opportunity to heal in this lifetime. The one thing the hard lesson to learn is that you're going to constantly be doing that over and over again. I thought, oh my God, I did all this work. I'm healed. I'm so great. And then it was
Right.
like,
There's another level.
yes.
Mhm.
And that's the thing when it's time to level up, those lessons start coming back, and it's like, okay, I learned my lesson from this last time. So yeah, I got a tool in my toolbox over there that I can use for
Mhm.
this lesson specifically. So it doesn't mean that you'll never see it again. It's just being prepared, having the tools to navigate it and do the things.
Yes.
So
I love that example as well. Because when I was younger, you know, and I grew up with traumatic experiences and things like that, but I didn't have tools. You know, I really didn't have tools. And now I have such a wide uh, breadth of resources that I can access to heal myself and to console myself and to get support when things are not going the way that I might want them to, or in a particular moment, or when I'm hit with, like, you know, the loss of my sister, or just so many things that we all go through in our lives. So tools are so um, valuable. I just love that you use that word.
well, like we were talking, I went on and started shuffling. And shuffling the deck is one of the ways that we start to get our energy connected with the cards. There is several different options as to how you would do that in regards to get your energy into the cards and choose. People have their ways. Mine is preference is to shuffle. And a lot of the times the cards jump out, right? So these two did. So I have two actually from this deck,
Mhm.
because they both came out, and so I usually honor that. And the first one is Ellen, and it's patterns. It was funny because I just said that on my walk this morning about how in math I was always better with patterns. Anything like, and right now, still to this day, like I just when I get excited about something and I get obsessive, because I can be obsessive compulsive, like I'm like paying attention to like, oh, okay, so this goes, and I just watch it until I can just take it all and put it into a little nice little ball.
You know,
But
when you, oh, go ahead, finish.
well, no, I was going to say, and the other thing that I noticed on here is the color. So usually a lot of times when I see the colors, I think chakras, which are our energy centers. And we've said so many terms tonight that I feel like we have like five more podcasts that we could do just to explain some of these things.
Well, that's green, so the heart.
Heart. We got the heart, and I feel like there's some like blue coming up in there too. So of course we're going up to the throat, going up to the upper faculties, but also we got a lot of sun happening down there too. So we both know our solar plexus is down there, and I feel like my solar plexus is always someplace that I have to work on. Um, so
So
that
are you pulling the cards as, I mean, as a message to share with
yes,
the audience?
I
Uh,
will.
okay.
Yep, I will share a message with you. I was just wanting to kind of break the cards down and let you know what we got. So we got Pravati, which is devotion. And these cards actually have numbers on them. So that's 41,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one was 12. So a lot of the times too, I will start to see patterns through the cards, the numbers that are pulled um, in there. And I'm gonna go ahead and shuffle our spirit animal deck. And I'll just do one
So
for
the first card was patterns. What was the name?
Ellen,
Ellen. Okay.
Ellen.
Taking my notes. Um, so while you're shuffling,
Mm-hmm.
when you were talking about patterns, I coach authors and I always tell them that, people look for patterns. Like it comforts us when things have a pattern. Even for children, like it's very comforting if dinner is at 6 o'clock every night, or if I get on the school bus at 8 a.m. every morning or whatever.
Yes.
So yeah, so we all
Uh,
kind of like patterns.
it was funny because you just said that, and I was like, oh, that's why I like patterns.
Well, yeah, maybe especially if you didn't have them, the
Right.
way that you wanted them, when you were
As soon
younger.
as you said it, I was like, oh, and sometimes it could be like that. Just like you're having, like you said, having those everyday or those normal conversations, and somebody drops that little nugget, right? And if you're so consumed and you don't pick that up, like it's just this little trail of breadcrumbs a lot of the times, right? That's just trying to get you in the right direction, to the right door, to the right next place, on this journey. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be present.
Yes. Yes. Because it's so easy to not be present, to be
Yes.
constantly thinking about what's next. I had read a quote, I don't remember who it was from, but they were saying that you know, focusing a lot on the past causes depression. Focusing too much on the future causes anxiety.
Mhm.
And it's in the present that you find peace.
Oof. Yes, absolutely. So our spirit animal deck card is
Oh, an
here.
oyster.
Yay!
Why
I
do
was
I like
like,
why do
oh,
I
this
like
is
that so much?
this is what we want
It
right
gets to come out of its shell. Okay. Or, I don't know. I don't know why the oyster got me so
That's
excited.
my point though, right? Like just the energy and the thought process of like, yes, I want an oyster, you know what I mean?
For the world is your oyster. I like it. Okay.
I want to come out of my shell, I want to show up. So this deck is really particular. Like it has some really good messages. So I'm going to go straight into the book and read and just see what I see that it would be relevant to us. But one of the things immediately when I pulled it was abundance, right? Just, I mean, a pearl is in there. And that shell on the
Mm.
outside is hard. And it's going to take some patience. And it's going to take some work. And it's going to take some showing up. And it's going to actually take some receiving, which we're not always good at, right? That oyster that has to let sand in for that pearl to even be able to develop. And some of us might like sand, some of us might not like sand. But the willingness to show up and allow and follow those grains of sand to the pearl. I'm just like, I mean, I'm just, my body is like, yes, all of this. I want more of that. Recently
Yeah, I'm
did,
feeling that. And I wasn't even thinking about everything that you just said. And I'm just like, yes, I struggle with receiving. I have to really be conscious of it. Like I'm the kind of person, I don't even really want somebody to bring me a cup of coffee. Like I want to go and I know you're giving me the look. I ain't got issues. It's like or maybe part of it is being controlling. Like I want to go and get and I can do it. That whole, anyway, we'll talk about my problems later.
and
But
I
that
laid
always
in
was
bed
speaking
for
to
an
me.
extra 30 minutes wishing somebody would make me some coffee. Excuse me. And get some.
Anyway, are you pulling one more for us for the animals?
Nope, I'm just gonna do one for that one.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go into the book. And what is associated with the oyster is patience, a secret keeper, hiding inner treasures. When in balance, you feel blessed, generous, masterful. When out of balance, reluctant, gripping, clams up. To bring into balance, share something. So today I walked at our trail that we normally walk at. And recently there's been a lot more unhoused people around the trail. And I had Cosmo with me, my dog, and one of the ladies wanted to interact with him, and they did. And then she proceeded to follow me to the car and ask me if I had something to be able to give her. And I was like, no. I was like, but I'm here several times a week. Next time I come, I'll try and remember to have something for you. And I got in the car and I remembered I had $2. And when I say I had $2, I had $2. So I was
I
like,
know what you mean. I wish I didn't, but I do.
I sat there for a moment and I was like, and all I could hear was like, give the $2. And so I gave the $2, right? And I don't share that to say, oh, I did this thing. Um, I share that to say, share something, right? Don't clam up, let the sand in, so we can develop that oyster. Um, when I look at the goddess cards, it brings me into mind also of the eclipse we just went through,
The
right?
equinox?
Full moon. Yep. The equinox, yep, and the partial eclipse. I'm sorry, it's the equinox and the partial eclipse in the
Okay.
full moon. And it was in Virgo. And when I think about patterns, nobody's better at those than Virgos, right? They are very perfection oriented, and a lot of what this last cycle just brought us was releasing old patterns, letting go so we can be prepared to receive. So when I see that, and you got to have an open heart to be able to receive, and you can't have an open heart when you're holding on to the past.
Hmm.
So for this last quarter, our job is to really release old patterns and the things that are holding us back. Um, I saw that across many people that I follow. I try and make it a point to keep my social media, especially Instagram, filled with people that are delivering messages that feed me versus ones that are taken away from my energy. And a lot of people I follow talk about the different cycles and things that are happening, and all of them are on the same page about the release, endings to cycles, to old patterns.
I hope that translates into our politics. I love this message, releasing old patterns, and getting rid of things that are harmful and being open to, I just love this oyster. I'm so glad you pulled that card. And being open to um, things that may be new and may be healing.
Mhm. Yes.
Um, I think a lot of people can become closed. Even the message that I was telling you when I spoke to my mom, and she said to me to be open, that even though I'm on this spiritual path, that I don't know everything and I need to continue to be open and learn. And then she directed me to archangels, which I didn't know much about. Because it's easy to close your, be like the little monkeys, close your eyes, cover your ears, and just go along. I don't want to hear anything. I think I already know.
Yes.
So I love that message. I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add to the message that you're giving us.
um you had just said something and I was going to respond. Oh, I was thinking about when I shared about when I showed up for the session with my now teacher, Allie, and I could hear like somebody going, well, how do you know she was telling you the truth? How do you know that your grandmother sent you there? Well, I had to rewind back to when I started going to yoga, and I loved yin yoga. It was one of my most favorite practices. And at the studio, they had a yin class and a restorative class back to back. But in yin class, I got into the first pose. And as I lay there, like I just kind of like went out of my body and I see my grandma and she's holding this baby. And I realize it's me.
Hmm.
The first time truly in my body that I felt like I had saw somebody look at me that in the way that she loved me. You know, that love that just holds you as you walk out
Mhm.
into the world and nothing else matters. That. And I was like, oh, I was loved. You know,
Mm.
and I cried. Thank God it was just me and one other person in the class. I
Crying
cried.
is okay, but I know what you mean.
Now I'm not as bothered about crying out in public. I've worked on some vulnerability, but back then that was such a no-no for me. But she came to me and she showed me, I happened, like I said, when you get relaxed, your mind is quiet. I was a channel and I was available for that message to get through. And that really began to change my trajectory. But so when I sat down in front of Allie and she said that, I was like, oh, dots connected. Because I hadn't even said a word yet. I hadn't shared one thing with her yet. So,
I'm glad that you mentioned that. Because as I started connecting with ancestors and spirit guides, we all have these moments, even like in yoga or meditation, if you have clarity or different things that you might experience, we all have these moments where we doubt ourselves. Did that really happen? Am I just talking to myself? Is that really real? So that's normal. Like if you didn't question whether something was real, um, then you'd probably just not be like a kind of a wise person if you just accept. So I'm glad that you say that because it took me a while before I started talking about the fact that I speak to spirits, right? Because it's like, what? Um, but I guess there is a knowing, you know, um, that maybe takes a little time for us to get some confidence with, but I think a sense of internal truth when we feel like something is real. um and the intelligence, because even if you were to question, well, maybe did I really, you find yourself getting this intelligence, messages that are meaningful and powerful. But yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I'm a natural skeptic, so I don't know how I ended up, in this space, but it's where I am, and it's so rich and beautiful.
and sharing this on a platform with potentially, anybody that can access it is, I feel like a lot about where my lessons are right now. And when I look at this, it's talking about that devotion. So how devoted to your practice are you going to be? Right. And that practice can be many different things. One of my practices is shamanism. It's not something that I immediately came out and said and told everybody. Hey, I'm practicing shamanism. I'm a shaman. I'm am working with this energy and I'm talking to spirits and I'm doing this healing. And no, that just didn't happen. My best friend um, joined me on the journey, and it's like we knew what we knew, we trusted it, we believed in it, we allowed it to do what it was doing in our life. So my approach has always been, if somebody asks me something or opportunity presents, I talk about it, but I have still yet to learn how to safely navigate giving it all out to the world, which I shouldn't probably give it all out to the world. I need to keep some for myself. But showing up 100% as that person all the time in spaces, I'm still undoing a lot of the religion that happened throughout my life. So it's a journey, and as we say in yoga, it's a practice, it's not a perfect. It's a journey that we get to learn and evolve. I am a human, right? Like I can't ascend out of here while I'm in this little meat suit. So I'm still having everyday experiences and processes um, as well, but I honor, work with practices to slow down, to be intentional, um, and be a channel and be available when people ask me to be a conduit and a channel for them. And sometimes it happens when people don't ask. It happens when I'm just in the space and I'm the most open channel. But I do operate by the principle of having permission when entering people's energy and space and offering them things because everybody's not ready to hear what needs to be said.
And if anyone, would like a reading, I had a reading with Prima. I've recommended her to my friends, and she just got glowing reviews from me as well as from the person that I recommended. So I know she's available for that. Do you have any projects or any things that you want to let the audience know about, or
Yeah,
any
so
final thoughts before we wrap up?
I am participating in a yoga teacher training at a local yoga studio here, Buffy's Mystic Boutique, that starts in October. So if you're local to Polk County and you are thinking about going through yoga teacher training, would love to have you join us. There is a Reiki and sound certification included in that particular training, so it has a lot of value. Yoga teacher training can be an excellent tool helping you to dive deeper into yourself. It's not always just about going out and teaching. Like I said, it's keeping some for yourself. Just deepening your practice and having an extra tool in the toolbox. Weekly, I do offer private sessions. I can do readings and yeah, all those great things.
And how can people uh, connect with you? How can they find you?
So I am on Instagram as Prima, Prima, Yawa. And the name of my company is Open Door Wellness. So typically, if you search either one of those, you'll find me on your social channels. Right now is Instagram and Facebook. And you can email me at opendoorapothecary@gmail.com. That's a great way to get in contact with me. But yeah, social media is an excellent vehicle. I like to do a lot through there, and I'm typically on there, so that's a great way to contact and reach out.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much, Prima, for having this conversation with me. I think it was wonderful. Thank you for pulling cards. It was a pleasure having you.
I'm so grateful for the opportunity, Trish. Thanks for pushing me out of my comfort zone so growth can happen and I can be of service, which is so important to me. I'm so grateful for you and our connection.
Yes. So I hope you all enjoyed this episode of the Mind Blowing Happiness podcast. You can visit trishajelroberts.com and click the membership button to join my free community. We meet on the last Thursday of the month at noon Eastern, virtually on Zoom. And I hope that I will see you there. Bye-bye.